The nuclear secret that could start World War III. Picture this scenario. A single phone call in the middle of the night. A president wakes up to learn that a country in the Middle East has just tested its first nuclear weapon. Within hours, military jets are scrambling across 3 continents. Stock markets crash. Oil prices explode. And for the first time since the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world teeters on the edge of nuclear war. This isn't a movie plot. This is the nightmare scenario that keeps world leaders awake at night. And it all centers on one country, Iran. For over 2 decades, Iran has been accused of secretly racing toward the deadliest weapon on Earth. But the real story behind Iran's nuclear program is so twisted, so full of shocking betrayals and impossible ironies, that it reads like the most unbelievable thriller ever written. And here's the part that will blow your mind. The same country now threatening military action to stop Iran's nuclear program is the exact same country that helped Iran start it in the first place. How did we get here? How did an American ally become America's greatest nuclear threat? And are we really just months away from a new nuclear power that could change the world forever? Let me tell you the incredible true story of Iran's nuclear program. A story of friendship turned to hatred, of peace projects turned to weapons of war, and of how one revolution changed the entire global balance of power. But first, I need to take you back to a time when Iran and America were best friends, and nuclear technology was seen as the key to a bright, peaceful future. The year was 1957. The world was still reeling from the horrors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but there was hope that nuclear technology could be used for good instead of destruction. President Eisenhower launched a program called Atoms for Peace, designed to share nuclear technology with friendly nations for electricity and medical research. And Iran? Iran was America's most important ally in the Middle East. The Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was a pro-Western ruler who wanted to modernize his country. When American scientists offered to help Iran build its first nuclear reactor, it seemed like the perfect partnership. Clean energy, scientific progress, 2 friends working together toward a better future. The Americans didn't just provide a small research reactor. They trained Iranian nuclear scientists at prestigious universities. They supplied highly enriched uranium. They helped Iran join the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which was supposed to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons while encouraging peaceful nuclear development. By the 1970s, Iran had ambitious plans. They wanted to build over 20 nuclear power plants. American, German, and French companies were lining up to help. The Shah even talked about eventually developing nuclear weapons, and American officials didn't seem particularly concerned. After all, Iran was an ally. What could go wrong? Everything, as it turned out. In 1979, the world watched in shock as the Iranian Revolution erupted. The Shah, America's trusted partner, fled the country. In his place rose an Islamic Republic led by Ayatollah Khomeini, a religious leader who saw America as the great Satan and Israel as an enemy to be destroyed. Overnight, Iran transformed from America's closest Middle Eastern ally to one of its most bitter enemies. But here's the terrifying part. All that nuclear knowledge, all that equipment, all those trained scientists, they didn't disappear with the Shah. They stayed in Iran, now under the control of a revolutionary government that had declared war on the Western world. At first, the new Iranian government seemed uninterested in nuclear technology. They even shut down some nuclear projects, calling them symbols of Western corruption. But as Iran found itself isolated and under attack from Saddam Hussein's Iraq, priorities began to change. The Iran-Iraq War was a nightmare that lasted 8 years and killed over 1 million people. Iraq used chemical weapons against Iranian soldiers and civilians. The world mostly stood by and watched. Iranian leaders learned a brutal lesson. In a dangerous world, only the strongest survive. And in the nuclear age, nothing makes you stronger than having the ultimate weapon. That's when Iran's nuclear program took a dark turn from peaceful energy to something far more sinister. Throughout the 1990s, while the world wasn't paying close attention, Iran began building a secret nuclear infrastructure. They started with seemingly innocent projects, research reactors and uranium mines. But intelligence agencies began noticing troubling patterns. In 2002, the world got its first glimpse of what Iran had been hiding. An Iranian opposition group revealed the existence of two secret nuclear facilities, Natanz and Arak. These weren't small research labs. Natanz was a massive underground uranium enrichment plant, built deep beneath the desert and protected by layers of concrete and steel. Arak was designed to produce plutonium, another path to nuclear weapons. Iran claimed these facilities were for peaceful purposes, part of their right to nuclear energy under international law. But experts were skeptical. Why build uranium enrichment facilities in secret? Why hide them underground? Why refuse to tell international inspectors about them? Then came more revelations. Intelligence agencies discovered that Iran had been secretly importing nuclear technology from Pakistan's black market network. They found evidence of weapons research, including designs for nuclear warheads and experiments with explosive systems needed to trigger nuclear reactions. Most damning of all, they discovered Iran was enriching uranium far beyond what's needed for power plants. To fuel a nuclear reactor, you need uranium enriched to about 3 to 5%. To build a nuclear weapon, you need uranium enriched to over 90%. Iran was enriching uranium to 20% and higher, getting dangerously close to weapons-grade material. The world began to panic. If Iran got nuclear weapons, it wouldn't just threaten Israel, though Iranian leaders had repeatedly called for Israel's destruction. It would trigger a nuclear arms race across the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, they would all want their own nuclear weapons to balance Iranian power. The most unstable region on Earth would become a nuclear powder keg. The United Nations Security Council imposed crushing economic sanctions on Iran. The European Union banned Iranian oil imports. The United States froze Iranian assets around the world. The goal was simple: make the economic cost of pursuing nuclear weapons so high that Iran would give up the program. But Iran didn't give up. Instead, they doubled down, building more centrifuges, enriching more uranium, and becoming increasingly defiant. Iranian leaders began using the nuclear program as a symbol of national pride, proof that Iran could stand up to Western bullying and achieve technological greatness. Behind the scenes, a shadow war began to unfold. In 2010, a computer virus called Stuxnet attacked Iranian nuclear facilities, destroying hundreds of centrifuges at Natanz. Everyone suspected American and Israeli intelligence, but neither country admitted responsibility. Then came the assassinations. Between 2010 and 2012, at least 4 Iranian nuclear scientists were killed in mysterious attacks in Tehran. Motorcycle riders would pull up alongside their cars and attach magnetic bombs. The victims were some of Iran's most important nuclear researchers. Again, everyone suspected Israeli intelligence, but Israel maintained its policy of neither confirming nor denying such operations. Iranian facilities also began suffering mysterious explosions and fires. A military base where Iran was allegedly developing nuclear weapon delivery systems exploded, killing dozens, including a key missile designer. Power outages hit nuclear facilities. Equipment mysteriously malfunctioned. Iran got the message. Pursuing nuclear weapons came with deadly consequences. But instead of backing down, they became more secretive, more determined, and more dangerous. By 2013, International experts estimated that Iran was just months away from having enough uranium for a nuclear bomb. The world faced a terrifying choice: accept a nuclear Iran or go to war to stop them. That's when diplomacy got one last chance. Barack Obama, who had become US president promising to engage with America's enemies, authorized secret negotiations with Iran. For 2 years, American and Iranian diplomats met in secret locations around the world. The talks were so sensitive that only a handful of people in each government knew they were happening. The breakthrough came in 2015 with the signing of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, known as the Iran Nuclear Deal or JCPOA. It was hailed as a diplomatic masterpiece that pulled the world back from the brink of war. Under the agreement, Iran agreed to dismantle most of its nuclear infrastructure. They would ship most of their enriched uranium out of the country. They would allow international inspectors unlimited access to nuclear facilities. They would modify their heavy water reactor so it couldn't produce weapons-grade plutonium. In exchange, the crushing international sanctions would be lifted. Iran would rejoin the global economy. Billions of dollars in frozen assets would be returned. It seemed like a win-win. Iran got economic relief. The world got assurance that Iran wasn't building nuclear weapons. For 2 years, the deal worked exactly as intended. International inspectors verified that Iran was complying with all restrictions. The threat of an Iranian nuclear bomb receded. Tensions in the Middle East began to cool. But then came Donald Trump. During his presidential campaign, Trump called the Iran nuclear deal the worst deal ever negotiated. He claimed Obama had been weak, that Iran was cheating, that the agreement was a disaster for American security. In 2018, despite opposition from European allies and his own military advisors, Trump withdrew the United States from the nuclear deal and reimposed sanctions on Iran. Trump's logic was simple. Maximum pressure would force Iran to negotiate a better deal that addressed not just nuclear weapons but also Iran's missile program and support for terrorist groups. But the strategy backfired spectacularly. Iran waited for a year, hoping other countries would save the nuclear deal. When it became clear that European nations couldn't shield Iran from American sanctions, Iranian leaders made a fateful decision. If America wasn't going to honor the nuclear agreement, neither was Iran. Step by step, Iran began breaking out of the nuclear restrictions. They restarted uranium enrichment. They began producing uranium metal, a key component of nuclear weapons. They restricted access for international inspectors. They started installing advanced centrifuges that could enrich uranium much faster. By 2021, Iran had more enriched uranium than before the nuclear deal was ever signed. They were enriching uranium to 60% purity, just a short technical step away from weapons-grade material. Most alarmingly, they had developed the knowledge and infrastructure to potentially produce enough material for a nuclear bomb within just a few weeks if they decided to sprint toward a weapon. Today, as I'm recording this video, Iran is closer to having nuclear weapons capability than at any point in its history. American intelligence agencies estimate that Iran could produce enough weapons-grade uranium for a nuclear bomb in just a few months. The question is no longer whether Iran can build nuclear weapons, but whether they will choose to do so. And that choice could trigger the most dangerous crisis since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Israel has repeatedly declared that it will never allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons. Israeli military leaders have drawn up plans for airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Prime Minister Netanyahu has called an Iranian nuclear weapon an existential threat to Israel's survival. But attacking Iran would be incredibly risky. Iranian nuclear facilities are scattered across the country, buried deep underground and heavily defended. A successful attack would require hundreds of airstrikes and potentially trigger a regional war involving Iran's allies across the Middle East. If Israel attacks Iran, Iran has threatened to retaliate by attacking Israeli cities, closing the Strait of Hormuz through which a third of the world's oil passes, and activating its network of proxy militias from Lebanon to Yemen. The United States could be drawn into the conflict to defend Israel, potentially leading to direct military confrontation between America and Iran. Meanwhile, Iran insists its nuclear program remains peaceful, and that it has no intention of building nuclear weapons. Iranian leaders claim they're only enriching uranium as leverage to get sanctions lifted and force America back into the... But can the world afford to take that risk? Nuclear weapons experts warn that once Iran crosses the threshold and produces weapons-grade uranium, the timeline to actually building a bomb shrinks to just weeks or months. At that point, diplomatic solutions become much harder and military options become more likely. The Biden administration has tried to revive nuclear negotiations, but talks have repeatedly stalled over fundamental disagreements. Iran wants all sanctions lifted immediately. America wants Iran to return to nuclear restrictions first. Neither side trusts the other enough to make the first move. So here we are, caught in the most dangerous nuclear standoff in decades. A country that America once helped develop nuclear technology is now threatening to use that technology against American allies. The peaceful atoms program of the 1950s has become the nuclear nightmare of the 2020s. The irony is staggering. The same superpower that once proudly shared nuclear technology with Iran now leads international efforts to prevent Iran from using that technology. History has come full circle in the most dangerous possible way. What happens next? Will Iran actually build nuclear weapons? Or are they using the threat as leverage in a high-stakes negotiating game? Will Israel decide the threat has become too great and launch preemptive strikes? Will diplomacy find a way to pull the world back from the nuclear brink once again? The answers to these questions will determine not just the fate of Iran, but the stability of the entire Middle East, and perhaps the world. Because in the nuclear age, one miscalculation, one moment of panic, one decision made in anger or fear could trigger consequences that change human history forever. The clock is ticking, and the world is watching. The Iranian nuclear crisis isn't just another Middle East conflict. It's a test of whether humanity can prevent nuclear weapons from spreading to the most unstable regions on Earth. And right now, we're failing that test. What do you think? Is Iran bluffing about nuclear weapons? Or are we really on the verge of a new nuclear arms race? Should diplomacy get another chance? Or is military action becoming inevitable? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the stories shaping our world. The next chapter in this nuclear thriller is being written right now. And trust me, you don't want to miss it.